All right, guys. Our next guest is a UFC knockout of the night and fight of the night winner. He's one of the top middleweights in the world and joins us straight out of Texas. We have none other than Tim Kennedy back on Submission Radio in 2015. Tim, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. What's going on? I like the introduction. It makes me sound like really good.
Yeah, we pride ourselves on our fantastic introductions. Now, last time we spoke was around November of last year. You know, you said you were essentially taking a break from MMA. We can only imagine you've been doing some things to sort of enjoy your life, keep yourself happy, and do some things like hunting. What has Tim Kennedy been up to in the last 5 or so months?
Oh, man. Did a movie, a TV show, and a ton of hunting. You know, hunting season was like all fall and winter long, so hunted a whole bunch, and I got a bunch of meat in my freezer. So life has been really cool. I made a son, so I have a little version of me with maybe a little less hair on his legs, but essentially very similar.
You know, it's interesting. I want to ask you about a couple of things that you mentioned. The first one, with the son, when you said, obviously, that you had a son, a lot of people on Twitter thought it was an April Fool's joke. A lot of them said, oh, Tim Kennedy's just trying to fool us. So the son's for real for everybody out there who thought it was just an April Fool's prank.
Yeah, I actually have like friends in California that still think I'm pulling an April Fool's joke. Like friends that I grew up with, you know, for like 5-6 years running, I've done something similar to that every April Fool's. You know, like, hey, Ginger's pregnant, or, you know, I just want to welcome my new son in the world, or something along those lines. And but this one was for real. It was I know it was a boy who cried wolf, which is what made it funny for April's first.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally for real.
So Tim Kennedy, the boy who cried son. Well, congratulations. I mean, that's a huge deal. We also hear that you'll be going to South America to film a TV show where you catch war criminals. I mean, that seems really right up your alley, but also pretty crazy, at least to guys like us. I mean, these are war criminals. Tell us about the show.
I really can't say anything outside of that. I'm supposed to leave today, but a big volcano in Chile erupted yesterday, or day before yesterday, and I guess the ash cloud is making maybe my departure being postponed for a minute. I'm not sure, but I'm supposed to fly out tonight and start work on Monday. You know, get my kit set up and start doing all the things you got to do to track people down.
Well, it's going to be an amazing show. We can't wait till it all comes together. Now, Tim, last time we had you on the program, you mentioned you were still pretty pissed off about what happened with the stoolgate incident, with your fight with Yoel Romero. Just wondering, a few months down the track, I believe it's about 5 or 6, how are you feeling now about the whole situation? And are you getting the itch at all to get back into the octagon?
You know, I think I'll always have the itch. You know, I remember Chuck Liddell, you know, in the twilight of his career, you know, he still always mentally was like wanting to fight, and you know, he had the offensive tools to be able to beat anybody. You know, but then, you know, his body and his brain, you know, can only do so much. Forrest Griffin, another example of that. You know, the list goes on. I'm not going to be that guy that's going to be 1, 2, 3 fights too late. You know, I'm gonna be done when I'm done, and you know, but I'm always gonna have that itch. You know, even after the last fight, even how, you know, stupid that whole fight was. Even afterwards, I'm watching my friends fight, or I'm cornering a guy, or you still have the itch. You know, I'm still training. Hell, I'm training 15 times a week still. So things are good.
Wow, 15 times a week. Yeah, that's something I wanted to check. You know, during this downtime, have you been training at all and stopping by Jackson Winkle-Jones to help out your teammates train for fights?
I've been training nonstop. You know, I got a bunch of training partners here in Austin. I got a bunch of training partners, obviously, in New Mexico. And you know, every chance I get, I'm trying to give back to guys that help me get ready for fights, whether I'm cornering them or training with them, just another body, another partner, and then still trying to get better as an athlete myself. You know, the only good part is I train in the morning, and then I have the whole day to do whatever I wanted, which usually involves, you know, guns or helicopters or some other way of trying to kill myself, and then train again that night. You know, I got to do that for the past 7 months.
Yeah, you live a very interesting life, Tim. Speaking of fights, a big fight transpired over the weekend. It was between one of your former opponents, Luke Rockhold, and Lyoto Machida, a big fight for the middleweight division. Just wondering, did you get a chance to watch that fight? And if you did, what were your thoughts from it?
I did watch it. I was unsurprised. I think that that fight could happen 10 different times, and the exact same outcome would happen all 10 times. And when you have the middleweight division and pretty much number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are Strikeforce guys, I think it's kind of clear, what we were like when we were just at Strikeforce and everybody's making fun of us, a bunch of little fish in a little pond. Now, here we are as the, 2 through 6 contenders. Luke effortlessly dismantled Lyoto. Everything that everybody said, like his hits, his footwork, is so tricky, so offensive, so unpredictable, blah, 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 blah. Luke walked him down and beat the crap out of him effortlessly.
Yeah, certainly. And it's interesting that you mentioned the whole thing about the Strikeforce fighters being in a pond. Does it make you feel sort of more motivated to come back? Because I mean, you and Luke, you guys had a very close fight. You and Jacare, you guys fought previously before. Does it get you any more motivated to get back in there and possibly get rematches against these guys who you fought previously and had some really good fights against before?
Yes and no. When we all came to the UFC, like with the exception of Vitor Belfort and Luke, none of us have lost to a single UFC fighter. From Yoel Romero, Luke, Jacare, and myself, we steamrolled every single one of our opponents in the entire UFC. I think we're like 14-1 with Luke having that loss, which was steroids and TRT. So we'll put an asterisk by that. We're like nearly 15-0. So the vindication is like everybody that have been so or was so relentless and unforgiving, writing about us, like these guys suck, they can't hang in the deep waters of the UFC, and now we're just like there's nobody here for us. We've already eaten up everybody and chewed them out and spit them out. So I guess that just means that the four of us are going to be fighting each other, for the next 2 years. I was like, me and Yoel again, super competitive, super close. I thought I'd beat Jacare. They gave the decision to him. Again, a very super close fight. Jacare and Luke, another very, very close fight. Luke and I, another close fight. Like how many times are we going to be fighting each other with super close outcomes? So I don't know, man. I have mad respect for those guys. Luke and Jacare, they're both very talented athletes. And, I think Luke is going to win a title this year. He's a real bad matchup for Chris Weidman. And, I don't know if that Jacare is on the back burner. It's tough. Had he fought Yoel, Jacare would have got probably the title fight. But, in the situation that they're in, I think we're going to see another belt with Luke Rockhold.
Yeah, a lot of people are picking that, and yeah, it's absolutely devastating that the Yoel Romero Jacare fight didn't happen. It was something we were really looking forward to. While we're on the subject, you mentioned Rockhold versus Weidman. How do you see that fight going? You say Luke's got the advantage. How do you see the fight playing out stylistically?
It's a bad fight for Chris, stylistically. He's going to take Luke down. Luke is really hard to take down, and when you get him down, his jiu-jitsu is amazing. It's one of the best and underrated offensive games, jiu-jitsu games in MMA. And but then he has the range, he has the height, he has the size, he has the power. It's a very, very difficult of all of the fights. If you look at Chris and match him up with the next 6 of us, that's his toughest matchup. And I think Chris and I would be a very tough fight. I think Jacare and Chris would be a tough fight. Yoel and Chris would be a very tough fight. And then we have Luke sitting here. So it's I don't see. I think Luke could win a decision, a 5-round outpoint him, hit him on the outside, force Chris to have to push for the takedown, push for the big punches while he's getting eaten up on angles. I could also see. I think Chris wanes in the later rounds. He loses some steam. That doesn't happen with Luke. Luke, if anything, gets faster and better as the rounds go on. I think Jacare, Luke Rockhold 1 is a clear example of that, where he just starts, when his momentum starts building, he doesn't get tired. He just picks up the volume. And that'd be a bad situation for a guy who, cuts so much, has so much strength, but then starts waning towards the end of the fight.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let's talk about yourself. You mentioned this week that you'd possibly be interested in a matchup with Lyoto Machida next, and you also added that you'd like a stipulation to the fight. The loser of the fight has to leave the UFC Fighting Championship. Just wondering, what did you suggest that stipulation, Tim?
I was stipulation. I never said stipulation, and I was making fun with Ariel. We're both old. I think I just said, man, we're both crotchety old farts. We've both been fighting for so long that, at this point of our career, I think if both of us had another loss, is there any realistic chance I would be fighting for a title? And if I'm not going to be fighting, if I don't have hopes of fighting for a title, then what's the point of me fighting? I'm not going to be that guy that is just holding on for another fight for another paycheck. That's not me. I want to be fighting the best guys in the world. And, Lyoto is still one of those guys. I think he's one of the most talented athletes ever, but he's also getting old, maybe losing a little bit of his edge and the quickness that he relied upon. His style is very based on responsiveness, and that's one of the first things to go. My style, on the other hand, that power grinder with big punches, with takedowns, lay on top of you and just take your soul and eat it. Obviously not a fan favorite, but with, Lyoto and I, my style lasts longer. Randy Couture, great example of how long you can carry that style. Dan Henderson, even though he's post-prime now, shouldn't be fighting anymore. He took that into his 40s as well. And Lyoto, he's like, I got to catch you coming in. You got to make a mistake, and I got to capitalize on it. Those are all very quick, responsive type things that go with age. So I was just making fun of him, talking crap.
So in regards to fighting Machida, though, are you actually interested? Would you come back for a fight with Lyoto Machida?
Yeah, maybe. If the circumstances are right, the venue is right. I still always have the itch to fight, and that's never going to change. And but now at this point, I have so much awesome things going on that really things have to be great. And a guy like Lyoto, mad respect, super talented, love him to death, been a fan of him forever. He and I think could put on an awesome fight. Put us in the right venue on the right night, and maybe that'd be something fun.
Well, maybe's enough for us to get excited about it, Tim. Just a fun question here for the fans. If the matchup does sort of come together, what would you see as your advantages over Machida, and how would you see the fight playing out?
Man, I have so many advantages over him that I'm not sure I can even list them. First and foremost, I don't ingest urine. I think my ability to consume other fluids is first and foremost paramount in the matchup. So the toxins that are going to be leaving my penis, I'm not going to put back down my throat. So that's major. And second is I think karate's dead. So, he may be good at a whole bunch of things. And karate is also one of them, but karate is not what's made him successful. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He has fantastic wrestling. He has great kickboxing. But he can still walk out with his karate gi. He can try to front kick me. That'd be cool. What else? I'm trying to think of other things that I had better hair.
Hey, he had the sponsorship from Head and Shoulders there, Tim. That's a big call.
Dude, that's not, well, if you have dandruff, which I don't, so that falls into the advantage category as well. I don't have flaky pieces of my scalp falling onto my shoulders, or I need a sponsorship from a shampoo company that specializes in dandruff.
That's true, and that's a huge factor in every fight, as every pro fighter will know. We're not fighters, but we'll definitely take your word for that. So that's 5 interesting points. Either way, Tim, with this Machida fight and the way he's speaking about loser leaves town, it definitely seems like retirement has crossed your mind. Have you had a chance to think about it? And, assuming you return, how many fights or how many years do you think you'll continue to fight for?
Like I said, I could physically, I could fight for forever. I could fight further for 4, 5, 6 years.
Mm.
That's another 10, 12 fights. If, that's my brain and my body. It's whether I want to or not. If it makes sense for my family, if it makes sense for my business and my work. I have some great relationships with a lot of different people that I've been working. I've been a professional athlete for 13 years now as a professional fighter. So who knows? I'm never gonna be like, okay, I'm retired. I think it's just gonna be like, man, I don't know. I just don't feel like fighting, or man, I'm really excited about this fight. Somewhere in between there is where I am right now.
Now, certainly a great point there, Tim. And obviously, you mentioned Machida's an interesting matchup for you. Is there any? Obviously, the division is such a huge, vast division now in the UFC. Are there any other names in the division that, if Lyoto Machida can't, make the fight or something like that, that you'd be interested in possibly matching up with as well? Because there's some great people in the division that you could possibly match up with.
Thank you.
Well, there's a guy called Jacare who might be looking for a fight that fans would love to see a rematch. He obviously mentioned that you guys had a close fight. There's a guy called Michael Bisping that you've been wanting to fight, and that might be a great fight as well. Who knows? There might even be
real bad.
What? Sorry?
I beat him up real bad. I beat him for 25 minutes.
Yeah, but he seemed pretty keen on a rematch afterwards.
That's crazy talk. Yeah, I'd totally fight him again, but that's just an easy paycheck.
Nothing wrong with an easy paycheck for me and Casper here in Australia. But I was wondering, Tim, speaking of sort of older fighters, this fight between Chris Weidman and Vitor Belfort. Now, this thing's been delayed way too many times. Fans have been looking forward to it, but I feel like a lot of the excitement for this fight has died down quite a bit. Now, Belfort has actually, denied fighting again. He's 38 years old and he wants to hold out for this title match. Obviously, he's off the TRT and we haven't seen him fight since. A lot of fans are still asking and wondering this. Do you think when he jumps in the octagon against Chris Weidman, we'll see the same Vitor Belfort as we've seen previously, obviously, when he was back on the TRT?
Yeah, man, my excitement for this level is, my excitement for this fight is dropping like Vitor Belfort's testosterone levels. It's just like plummeting every single day. I think, and having nothing to do with Chris Weidman. It's just failed drug test here, hidden drug test there, a fake injury here. It's just like, come on, man. You've been cheating the system for too long. You kind of got caught, even though you've been caught a couple of times in the past. It's like, I don't even think he deserves to be fighting for the title. I know he's a huge name in Brazil and people love him and he has a great haircut, and Jesus Christ is like the best and greatest thing in the world, and he drinks unicorn blood. But like the hypocrisy that exists within that one man is too numerous to list in this short interview.
Well, we're actually going to wrap up the interview in a second, Tim. Before that, we're going to ask one fan question, and then we're going to run through the Submission Radio tap-out round. The one fan question that we have here, it's from a guy called Alt-Space-Delete. His question is, being someone who stands up against PED users in the sport, I'd love to hear Tim's reaction and thoughts on Anderson Silva being busted for steroids.
I'm surprised. I mean, how many Brazilian athletes are there that haven't tested positive? Jose Aldo, he hasn't, right? Jacare hasn't. But it seems like every single time one of them is randomly tested, they fail. I don't know, maybe there's a pattern here. It was disappointing. I think Fedor and Anderson are and Sakuraba, the three greatest ever. And seeing a guy like that's been the best ever go out like that, it's disappointing, it's heartbreaking, it's pathetic, but unsurprising.
Yeah, it was definitely a difficult situation for a lot of the MMA community when they found out. Now, Tim, we're going to wrap up the interview with a thing we call the Submission Radio Tap-Out Round. We throw some fun questions at you, and you answer with the first thing that comes to mind, a lot like word association. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, now you jumped out of a helicopter this month. For the listeners at home who might have Mission Impossible moments in their lives, what's one tip you can give us when jumping out of a helicopter?
Make sure that your leg strap is not over your testicles.
I don't quite understand the dynamics. I've never jumped out of a helicopter, but that is pretty simple to follow, so I understand where you're coming from. What is your favorite place to wear your Cubs Swanson socks to?
Man, so I was alone in a hotel in Oklahoma teaching a seminar. I was away from my friends. I was away from, my family.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was really sad. And I opened my bag, and there is a brand new pair of Cub Swanson socks that gets snuck into my bag.
Boom.
So I just want to relive that moment over and over again. It's not like I want to, they're amazing socks, and I want to wear them everywhere. But I just want to open up my suitcase when I'm kind of down in the dumps, and just need a little pick-me-up and be like, oh, my God, Cub Swanson socks. How fantastic.
Well, there you go. Are you sure Cub didn't take your wallet out as well while he was putting the socks in?
No, but I think no, I don't tell you what he did. Never mind.
Okay, so here's an interesting question. Obviously, you're someone that knows combat quite well. What are your thoughts on Krav Maga for combat and street fighting? Do you think it's an effective style?
Yes, it is a great effective style for self-defense. It has zero application in MMA. So, they're trying to turn it into kind of a sporty thing too, which is not. It is a self-defense combative art form, which is super cool, as long as people understand the limitations of their own physicality. One of the major problems is these guys go to this, or these ladies go to these courses, and they're like, man, I know Krav Maga. I could kick a guy in the groin and poke him in the eyes. I'm like the dangerous dude on the street. You're like, bro, you're 135 pounds with your clothes being soaked, totally soaking wet. You're bald. You have tiny little strings for arms. You're really just now a liability to yourself. So you just need to have an accurate understanding of who and what you are. It's a great art. It's super great for combatives and self-defense. You just need to really have a realistic understanding and know yourself.
Yep, definitely all good points. Tim, one of the last questions. You tweeted a picture of what you always had, or what you have on you almost all the time, and included a knife, a gun, amongst other things. Have you ever forgotten to remove them during weigh-ins or warm-ups before a fight?
No, but I have gone to the airport and walking to the security line, freak out and be like, oh crap. And then have to run over to the counter and be like, I need my bag back. I need to stash a couple of these things. So that has happened.
All right, Tim, last question. You tweeted out on Friday the 13th. So this is Friday the 13th. It has been pretty disappointing, but the night is coming in with hopefully a masked psychopath tapping on my window. Just want to find out, Tim, did any psychopaths end up dropping by the house and spending some time with you? There
was absolutely nothing that happened. The levels of disappointment that day were just layered and layered on top of each other.
That's the worst.
I would have been fine with Freddy Cougar claws just being dragged across my door, or a dude in a hockey mask, with a machete, somebody with a chainsaw, with blood dripping off of it. No, but nothing. It was a horrible day.
Yeah, Eminem stayed home that day. Well, the good thing is you'll be able to take out your frustration on those psychos when you go out and catch these war criminals. Can't wait to see the TV show. And, as fans, we really hope that you do return to MMA so we can watch you in the cage. Guys, make sure to follow Tim and all his hilarious tweets at Tim Kennedy MMA. That's Twitter, of course. And Tim, as always, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You guys are the best. Thank you.